Sorry, Wayne, I missed that. You broke up a bit there.
Just wanted to welcome you to your first meeting.
Well, thank you very much. Hopefully you'll take it easy on me.
Oh, I don't know. This group don't take it easy on anybody.
Oh, no? All right, fair enough.
Test, Wayne, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Robert.
Okay, great, thank you.
How's your sound, Ray? You good?
I hope you can hear me.
Yep, good. Good show. Okay.
Wayne, is the agenda order still accurate so I can kind of preload some of the documents on the other laptop? Are we still?
No, it is not. We are going to take, we are going to do Reynolds. We're going to do Reynolds last. So we're going to do Ross and Wider first. And then we're going to do the recommendation to council second. And then we're going to go to the Reynolds one.
Okay, copy that, thanks.
Correct.
I think it looks like we're still waiting for the planner.
Yeah, I'm just texting him now, seeing where it's
Okay.
going.
And Melissa, you got the email, Tanis is not going to be here tonight?
Sorry, I was muted. Yes, correct. Thank you.
Well, you're gonna have to watch her on meeting. Nope, I said I'm on my meeting, so you're gonna have to watch her.
I'm assuming we'll wait for a couple minutes.
Okay.
Go ahead and then if need be, just take the lead. And I'll
Okay.
make some notes if you're-
Okay. Yeah, Wayne, we will proceed. If you can proceed with the opening remarks, and then we'll ask that the agent on behalf of the validation order and the minor variance, which are being heard concurrently, present in advance of the city planner. And in the event that he's not present at that time, I'll proceed with reading the planning report.
Okay, so we had at least one person from the public, but they're not here.
I do not see them present. Their request was to be present for D14-2004.
All right, okay.
Email.
Okay, so we'll get started with the preamble. As we gather, we recognize that we are on Treaty 3 lands, which are steeped in rich indigenous history and home to many First Nations and Métis people today. We continue to be thankful for the partnership with our indigenous people. We give thanks for the many blessings we enjoy in the city of Kenora. We seek wisdom in our minds, clearness in our thinking, truth in our speaking, and always love in our hearts, so that we may try always to unite the citizens of Kenora. Let these principles guide us in our decision making. In accordance with bylaw number 73-2020, the Planning Advisory Committee and Committee of Adjustments for the City of Kenora will host a virtual meeting with electronic participation in accordance with the Statutory Power Procedure Act. Personal information collected as a result of this public meeting are collected under the authority of the Planning Act and will be used to assist in making a decision on this matter. All names, addresses, opinions, and comments may be collected and may form part of the minutes, which will be available to the public. Questions regarding this collection should be forwarded to the Secretary Treasurer. The committee members, whom I will ask to quickly raise their hands to the screen, have been appointed by council to consider applications for minor variances, consents, validation certificates, plans of subdivision, and condominium descriptions within the jurisdiction of the Planning Act. I would like to ask the Secretary Treasurer to perform a roll call to those members in attendance to ensure connectivity.
Thank you, Wayne. So members, this is new for our process. This is just to ensure that everyone does have audio and we are connected. So if you could just say present after I call your name. Member Ray Pearson.
Present.
Member Bev Richards.
Present.
Member John Barr.
Present.
Member John McDougall.
Present.
Member Robert Katowski.
Present.
And Tanis McIntosh is absent today. Thank you. And I guess member or Chair Wayne Gould. Sorry, Wayne.
Present. Prior to calling the meeting to order, please ensure your microphone is on mute. If you are having difficulty, please raise your hand and the meeting organizer will mute you. If you are on a landline, please click the mute button. If you do not have a mute option, please ensure you are in a quiet space without interruptions. Should you be joining the meeting with video, please be mindful of what is visible to the public in your surroundings. Be respectful of others throughout the meeting. If at any time you wish to leave the meeting, you are free to do so by simply clicking on End Call at the bottom of your screen. If you are on a landline, you may hang up at any time. However, please do not interrupt the meeting to inform your dismissal. If at any time you require the attention of the chair, please raise your hand to the screen and wait to be acknowledged. Please note, this meeting is being recorded, and by continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting to be recorded. Tap Leave Meeting to opt out and exit the session. The applicants or agents will be given an opportunity to speak on behalf of their submissions and to respond to questions arising from discussion of these applications. Interested members of the public will also be given the opportunity to speak in favor of or in opposition to the application being heard. When it is time for public comments, I will address the participants by the name that was used to register for this virtual packed meeting. Once your name has been called, please then unmute your microphone or your telephone. All persons addressing the committee shall state their full name, mailing address, and must direct their comments through myself, the chair. When addressing an application through the virtual meeting, your comments should be limited to 5 minutes. Once your comments are complete, please mute your microphone. Decisions will be mailed or emailed to the applicant, agent, and to all other interested parties who have provided their mailing address and or email address to the Secretary Treasurer at mshaw@kenora.ca. Also, a notice of adjourned application or possible local planning appeal tribunal hearing will also be provided for those who have made a written request form via email to the Secretary Treasurer at mshaw@kenora.ca. The decision and/or any condition imposed by the committee can be appealed to the local planning appeal tribunal. The notice of appeal for a minor variance application must be filed with the Secretary Treasurer within 20 days of the making of the decision. The notice of appeal for a land division application must be filed with the Secretary Treasurer within 20 days of the mailing of the notice. The Secretary Treasurer for the Kenora Planning Advisory Committee is Melissa Shaw. The City Planner is Kevin Sumner. The Manager of Development Services is Adam Smith. I'll now call the meeting to order, and I will ask if there's any additions to the agenda.
There are no additions, but as identified, we are changing the order of the agenda with consideration for application for consent D 2007 being moved to the end of the agenda.
Declaration of interest by a member of this meeting or at a meeting at which a member was not present.
Member John Barr has identified a declaration of interest for D10 2007 Rabbit Lake Road.
All right. Okay, adoption of minutes of a previous meeting of November 17th of 2020. And I will ask if there are any questions or corrections to the minutes as circulated.
If I may interrupt, I have received amendments from a few members and those have been updated.
They have been? Okay.
Correct.
Anybody else? Any questions, corrections?
No.
All right. The minutes are approved as corrected. Any additional correspondence relating to applications before the committee this evening?
No additional public correspondence has been received.
Okay. So we'll move on then to consideration of an application for a minor variance, D13-2005, I believe it's Donald Ross and John Wider. And concurrently, we will hear a consideration of an application for a validation order, D10-2006, and again, Ross and Wider. And we will hand the floor over to Padre. You ready to present your application?
Yes, I am. Thank you. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Phaedra Olenek, and I'm agent for the Ross and Wider matter tonight. We have filed applications for both a validation certificate as well as a minor variance application, which is ancillary to that application. It's the history of what had happened is detailed in the planning report, so I will be brief in summarizing. But back in 1982, there was a Planning Act violation that occurred when the transferor retained the abutting piece of land without obtaining the necessary consent, and legal counsel at the time made the Planning Act statement indicating that no abutting lands were being retained when in fact he did retain, which is now the northerly piece of property. So this is essentially a remedial application. We are just looking to have done what should have been done back in 1982. The impact of this Planning Act breach essentially means that no legal interest in the land was ever conveyed to the people who believe they've owned it since 1982. The minor variance application is ancillary, as indicated. The northerly piece of property that was not transferred does not meet the minimum lot area requirement for rural residential properties. So we would be seeking a minor variance to that to bring it into legal non-conforming. With regards to both applications, it's important to note that there are no additional development being proposed here. There's no alterations being proposed. There's no environmental impact, and no municipal services are being impacted either. It's purely legal from our standpoint, and it's just correcting an error that should have been caught a lot sooner and should never have happened in the first place. I'll be here for questions, but I'll defer to Mr. Sumner's planning report for the remainder.
Okay, thank you. Kevin, we'll move to you for your report, please.
Yes, okay, so Mrs. Olinick has already summarized things quite well in terms of the introduction to the report. This is a validation order is a 204 fixing an inadvertent breach of the Planning Act in order to avoid the requirement of a consent application and to use a colloquial expression, that ship has sailed in this case. There's a transfer of the subject property several decades ago, but this is required to bring it into legal conformity to the Planning Act and local planning regulations. And as noted, the northerly lot, when we were reviewing this application, in approving the consent for the part 2 of this property, the residual part 1 is only 0.23 hectares in area. So we've recommended a variance from 1 hectare to 2.23 hectares to legally establish that as a substandard lot in terms of the requirements of the RR zone. So as I mentioned, this has been in place for several decades. In 1981, this was previously owned prior to 1981 by a single individual, this property, which at one point consisted of 4 parts. In 1981, part 3 was conveyed to a purchaser or a separate owner of a new owner of that portion of the property. And in 1982, and that was legally as far as we know. In 1982, part 2 was conveyed, and that's the part in question. And the owner did so without obtaining the necessary consent. And the Planning Act statement was made on the paperwork for that transfer that he did not retain any abutting lands, while in fact he did retain that part 1. And I provided a copy of a section of the drawing from the survey plan, so you can just see how that part 1, part 2, part 3, and part 4 were laid out in that property. So when I refer to part 1, it's that the most northerly parcel. Part 2 is the second parcel from the north. So those properties are designated as rural within our official plan and zoned rural residential. And the southerly property has been developed with a single detached dwelling and related accessory structure. The northerly property appears to be undeveloped and partially tree covered. In regards to consistency with legislative policy and city directives, we consider this validation to be generally consistent with the policies of the provincial policy statement, which promotes managing and directing land use to achieve efficient and resilient development and land use patterns. And it does appear to be compatible with the rural landscape. These have existed as lots for approximately 40 years or almost 40 years, with no indication of their existence causing any sort of problems or concerns amongst local residents. In regards to the city's official plan, as I mentioned, it's rural area, which provides for a variety of agricultural, residential, industrial, commercial, recreation, tourism, and open space uses. The surrounding area includes a mix of residential lots along the shoreline of Black Sturgeon Lake and larger undeveloped or lightly developed lots that do not have lake frontage and are heavily forested. And you see an excerpt of the zoning map indicating the zoning of the property, or sorry, then on to the official plan mapping. Sorry, the two maps were interposed. So the zoning mapping actually appears on page 6. And in regards to the zoning mapping, the properties are zoned rural residential. Development is subject to the regulations of section 4.5 of the zoning bylaw. This rural residential zone allows for development of low density, single detached, seasonal and permanent housing and compatible uses in the rural setting. Lots in this zone must have a minimum lot frontage of 61 meters and a minimum lot area of 1 hectare. The southerly lot conforms to the regulations of the RR zone, and the minor variance is required to reduce the required lot area for the northern lot. The proposed consent was circulated for comment on November 27th, 2020. No concerns were expressed by any of our circulating agencies or departments. We did circulate the notice of complete application It was completed on November 30th in accordance with Section 45 of the Planning Act, whereby it was circulated to property owners within 60 meters of the subject property and provided to the persons and public bodies prescribed. And that's specific to the minor variance. There is no notice requirement for the validation order. The public hearing is scheduled for tonight. And as of the date of the report and as of tonight, we have received no public comments in regards to the minor variance. So the lot in question for the minor variance, again, part 1, was originally created in 1984 when that southerly lot was transferred. And this will establish as a legally non-conforming lot. The lot does appear to be compatible with the pattern of surrounding development. Several of the rural residential lots of comparable size are located on the other side of Coker Road, just to the south of these lots. If you refer back to the maps, there is no indication that the size of the lot has caused adverse impacts on the neighboring properties. And just for the information of the applicant and the committee, there are the 4 tests in any application for minor variance. I won't repeat them. The committee is quite familiar with them at this point. In regards to the application for validation order, in evaluating a validation certificate, the committee must have regard to the same criteria as when considering a consent application. Additionally, Ontario Regulation 144/95 requires the validation certificate to conform to but not comply with any applicable official plan or zoning bylaw. If approved, the validation order will fix an inadvertent breach of the Planning Act and avoid the requirement of a consent application. The application to support the policy is supported by the policies of both the provincial policy statement and the official plan, and is compatible with the regulations of the RR zone and the City of Kenora zoning bylaw, with again the exception of the lot area. Therefore, it is a recommendation in regards to the minor variance D13-20-05. Our recommendation is that the Kenora Planning Advisory Committee takes into consideration those comments that may yet to be received, of which there have been none, and that the application D13-20-05 to seek relief from the City of Kenora zoning bylaw 101-2015, section 4.5.3b, which requires a minimum lot area of 1 hectare for properties zoned RR, rural residential zone, meets the 4 tests and should be approved. And in regards to application for validation order D10-20-06, our recommendation is that the application D10-20-03 for a validation order for properties located at 361 and an unassigned address on Coker Road and legally described as PIN 42134-0185 and PIN 42134-0184 be approved. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Okay, so Pedro, we'll come back to you. Is there anything that you would like to add to that, or any comments? Or
No, I don't have anything to add. It was a very thorough report. Just it's essentially reestablishing lot lines that were inadvertently lost back in 1982. We're not asking for any further development. We're not proposing any alterations. So yeah, we would just ask that the committee take that into consideration.
okay, thank you. Anybody? I don't believe there's anybody here from the public regarding these applications. So there's no comments from the public. So we'll see if there's any questions from the committee. And let's start with you, Bev.
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay. Ray?
No, I have no questions at this time, Mr. Chair.
Robert?
No questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
John Barr?
No questions from me.
Okay. John McDougall?
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so I just want to ask a quick question, and I'm not sure, Kevin, maybe you'll answer this, but so the lot that I think it's lot 1, so the reduction to 0.23 acres, is the actual frontage all right as well, or are we reducing the frontage?
The frontage of that property is sufficient. It does comply with the rural residential zone.
So There's enough there. If somebody decides that they want to build a house, put a septic, develop that land, we've got enough land there that we can make it work.
Yeah, it appears that there would be sufficient space. I would suspect that when it comes time to get an improved septic system, they'd be stuck with a holding tank. I'd be surprised if you could get a septic field onto that property. But there's evidence that similar sized lots have been developed on the other side of the road that actually have frontage on Black Sturgeon Lake. So I would suspect, I don't see any reason this property wouldn't be developable.
Okay, all right. Any other questions? Discussion? Let's just do it in reverse. John McDougall.
I don't think I have anything to add, Mr. Chair.
John Barr?
Nothing from me.
Okay. Robert?
Just the discussion is, I had thought that there was a request to ask for minor variance for the frontage as well in the original application. So we know for sure it was 61 meters across the front?
Again, Kevin, maybe you could answer that.
Yes, I'm just in our review of it. Now the frontage is actually measured at a set distance, not right at the front property line, and it was measured at a distance further back from the front property line and parallel to it, distance equivalent to the front yard setback. Just one second, I'm just pulling it up.
Showing 27 meters on the application.
That's what I was looking at, yes.
Yeah.
So
That's correct. Kevin, would you like me to?
Yes, actually, amend that. Sorry, there was some back and forth back then, and somehow this appears to have been.
Yes, so we did do an amendment to the application. The agent did apply for relief from section 4.5.3A, the zoning provision being 61 meters, the proposed provision being 27 meters of frontage for relief of 34 meters. And then the provision of 4.5.3B with the lot area being 1 hectare in size, the proposed provision being 0.2367 hectares for relief of 0.76.
Yes, yeah, my apologies. I pulled up here, somehow that got dropped. So yes, there should be relief on the frontage as well. My apologies.
okay, so we're back to the way that it's, sorry, Mr. Chair, through you. So we're back to the way that it's written in the completed application, and then we just need to add the relief to of the 61 to 27 meters. Those numbers are accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, Melissa, that you'll make the necessary change there?
Yes, absolutely. Just perhaps we'll have the agent confirm that it is relief of 34 meters. They are requesting for frontage, which would allow for the lot to exist with a 27 meter frontage.
Yes, that is what we were seeking relief for.
Robert, we're still with you.
Okay, I'm sorry, just scanning through it again. No, then that's good then, Mr. Chair. All we need to do is amend the recommendation, right?
Yeah, and yeah, okay.
Or amend the recommendation and then just make it clear that that's what we're minor variance for that as well. I hear.
Yes, and the notice was correct. The frontage relief was on the notice. There was on my part when it came time to write the report.
Okay, so is everybody on side with that? Everybody's okay with that, just with a quick show of hands? Yeah. Okay, good, all right. So Ray, discussion?
Yeah, just one clarification then with respect to the relief on the frontage. And I don't have it in front of me, but Kevin, if you could just clarify, did the roads department approve the drive access then for that lot?
No, there has not been a drive access for the northerly lot. There's been no development of it. When at such time that it does become developed and there is a driveway installed, then there will be a permit would be required, I'd expect. They didn't flag any concern at this point with this circulation.
Okay, you said they didn't flag anything? Okay. All right, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Bev?
No questions or concerns, thank you.
One concern that I do have is when you say they didn't flag anything, but not necessarily did they look at it, right?
Yes, they would have looked at it. They replied that there was no concerns with the proposed minor variance.
Okay, all right. Any more discussion? Anything else? Anybody have more to add? Okay. So we'll call for a motion and we'll do the minor variance first, D13-2005. You have a mover? Or somebody to put a motion forward?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, I can make motion, but maybe first, can we maybe hear the verbiage from the treasurer, if that's available? Just to make sure that it has the minor variance.
Okay.
Frontage as well.
Okay. Your mic's not on. Melissa, your mic's not on.
My apologies. That the Kenora Planning Advisory Committee approves application for minor variance D13-2005, seeking relief from the City of Kenora zoning bylaw section 4.5.3A for a reduced lot frontage of 27 meters. And then we will include section 4.5.3B, which requires a minimum lot area of 1 hectare for a reduction of, obviously I'm doing this on the fly, my apologies, 0.23 meters for a lot area of 0.76 hectares. Be approved, and it meets the 4 tests.
Okay, Robert, yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, so I'll make motion that the Planning Advisory Committee approve application D13-20-5 as communicated by the Secretary Treasurer, Mr. Chair. Oh, I got the wrong application number, I think.
I missed that. What did you say?
I'm sorry, I think I may have stated the wrong application number, but D10-2006 was the one that I was referring to. Motion on that one first, right?
Yes, please. Seconder? Okay, Bev, I see Bev.
Yeah.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Carried.
Okay, we'll move forward to consideration.
If I could just interject. So the minor variance D13-2005 has received approval here this evening. However, it is subject to an appeal period as of this evening. So that takes us to January 4th. I will send the agent affidavit of no appeal, and the validation order is not subject to appeal. So we will communicate the validation order by Thursday.
So the validation order is D10-2006.
Correct.
Okay, and I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'll make motion that the Planning Advisory Committee approve application D10-2006, application for validation order as written in the planning report, Mr. Chair.
Seconder? I see Ray Pearson.
Yep.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor? Okay, Melissa?
Yeah, as previously mentioned, the validation order is not subject to appeal. So the minor variance, though, subject to the appeal of January 4th.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're gonna move on. So Pedro, that's about the end for you, unless you want to hang around.
No, thank you. Good evening.
Okay, thank you.
Good night.
Okay, we're ready. We're gonna move with, I see Bruce is in the picture here now.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Brian. Consideration of an application for consent. No, wait a sec, sorry. Consideration of recommendation of council. Application for an amendment to the zoning bylaw 101-2015, D142004. And Ryan, we're gonna ask you to do put the proposal forward.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's give some, I guess, some background information. Mr. Krivicki purchased this property this fall, in the fall of 2020, with the intent or hope of using a portion of the property, the southern portion, for parking spaces for an expansion of the marine operations for his business, which is 2 properties to the west. So Mr. Krivicki contacted me to act on agent on his behalf, and in our initial discussions with city planning staff, it became clear that the first step for this was to change the designation and the zoning of the subject property from R3 residential, 3rd density, which did not permit or does not permit a parking lot, and changing it to the highway commercial zone. This zone was chosen that the property also obviously abuts Highway 17, and it's also neighboring properties also have the highway commercial designation, so compatible with adjacent uses. And again, I guess the first step, if the zoning is approved, then we'll look at next steps towards establishing the parking lot for the expansion of the marine operations. I think in terms of the rest of the applications covered well in Mr. Sumner's planning report, which I believe you all have a copy of.
Okay, thank you. Kevin?
Yes, so in regards to my planning report, as Mr. Haynes has already identified, the property is being rezoned from R3 to HC. This is on the south side of Lakeview, as illustrated in the figure 1 of my report. The property owner intends, as Mr. Haynes again has said, to develop a parking lot on the southern portion of the property to support the future expansion of the change of latitude marina. The current zoning of the property didn't allow for, or does not allow for a parking lot. So at present, the property currently contains a residential dwelling and accessory garage, which the property owner intends to retain. These would become legally non-conforming under the proposed HC zone, meaning they would be allowed to continue to exist until such time as that use is discontinued at some point in the future. Surrounding properties contain a mixture of residential and commercial uses on the south side of Lakeview and a mixture of commercial and undeveloped lands on the north side. The bay to the southwest contains extensive marina docking, including that of the property owner. I've included here a panoramic image of the property from a site visit that I conducted on November 20th. You can see in that image the central area of that image is the area to be developed for the parking lot. The sort of strip of grass on the right-hand side of the image is a swale, a drainage swale on the property that appears to collect drainage off the property and direct it towards a stormwater drain that you can't see make out here, but it's at the very beginning of that grassy area. And you can see the existing residence and accessory garage up on the left side of that image. In regards to consistency with the provincial policy statement, the proposed rezoning is consistent with the policies that support providing for a mixture of land uses which efficiently use land and resources and are appropriate for and efficiently use the infrastructure available. The policy statement also states that planning authorities shall promote economic development and competitiveness by encouraging compact, mixed-use development that incorporates compatible employment uses. In regards to the city's official plan, the land use designation of the property is established area. Policy 4.1 of the plan states that the permitted uses shall include residential, commercial, industrial, and institutional uses. Surrounding properties to the northeast and west are designated as commercial development area. Properties to the south and east are designated as established area, and an area to the southeast is designated as a residential development area. So there's a real mix of uses and designations in this area. In the established area, minor changes to land use that are compatible with existing land uses do not result in significant increases to traffic, dust, odor, or noise, are similar in scale to the surrounding built form, and that improve the quality of life for area residents may be permitted through amendments of the zoning bylaw. In regards to the zoning bylaw, the property is currently zoned R3, which allows for development of public and privately owned facilities of institutional and community services nature. The proposed highway commercial zone allows for the development of a wide range of uses and services that meet the needs of residents, businesses, and tourists. The redeveloped portion of the property will need to comply with all applicable zoning regulations and will be subject to site plan control. The design of the proposed parking lot appears to meet zoning bylaw requirements for dimensions of parking spaces and adjacent aisles. We circulated for comment to commenting departments and agencies on December 7th. Of the agencies we circulated and departments, the only comments that we received that expressed anything other than no concerns were first from Synergy North, who noted a utility easement is located at the southeast corner of the property and no building can be permitted within the easement, and horizontal clearances requirements must be adhered to between buildings and overhead wires, which we took would not interfere at all with the development of a parking lot. And from CP Rail, a comment which I would typify as sort of generic in nature in terms of what I expect for any property in proximity to rail lines. They noted that they're not in favor of residential uses in proximity to the railway, as they generally are not compatible with rail operations and the safety and welfare of residents can be adversely affected. They recommend that any future tenants be provided with sufficient information regarding living in proximity to an active rail line, as freight trains operate 24/7 and schedules and volumes are subject to change. They do not oppose commercial developments within vicinity of the CP Rail right-of-way, but such developments should meet recommendations based on site-specific conditions and intended use. Public meeting was scheduled, is scheduled for council on January 12th. Notice of the application has been given in accordance with Section 34 of the Planning Act, whereby it was circulated on December 10th to property owners within 120 meters, published in the municipal memo of the newspaper on December 12th, and circulated to persons and public bodies as legislated. The notice also stated that the Planning Advisory Committee would have the opportunity to hear, to consider recommendations for the application to council at tonight's meeting. As of the date of the report and since, no public comments have been received. My evaluation of the proposal is that this large property contains a residence but has a significant undeveloped area that appears to be suitable for development for the intended use. The bay to the southwest of this property has extensive marina development, but limited parking areas constrain the use and expansion of docks. The proposed new parking lot will relieve existing pressure for parking in the area and may support future expansion of the owner's nearby marina, which would be subject to a separate application. If approved, the proposed rezoning will match that of adjacent properties on the south side of Lakeview Drive and is suitable to the mix of uses and zones in the immediate vicinity. Therefore, it is my recommendation, my professional opinion, that the application for zoning bylaw amendment file number D14-20-04 to change the zoning of the subject property from R3 residential third density zone to HC highway commercial zone should be approved in lieu of public comments that may be yet to be received. That concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Ryan, we'll come back to you. Anything you want to add or anything you want to?
I guess just one thing. I think in addition to kind of what Kevin said about the provincial policy statement, I think the addition of additional docking slips and associated parking sites will help the city meet its goal and I guess kind of promise of being North America's boating capital, especially for premier boating destination, particularly in light of Rio Bay recent closure. I think there is a lot of demand for dock slips and need in the community to help promote tourism and economic development.
Okay, thank you. Again, I see no one from the public, I don't think. Lestari, you can add anything? No, you're good? So we'll say there's no one from the public to speak in favor of or against this application. So we'll go to the PAC members for questions. And Ray, I'd like to start with you.
Okay, sure. I got a couple questions. I guess firstly, I just want clarification, I guess, from the agent there. Is the intent to alleviate the parking pressures on the existing docking, or is the intent to provide additional parking for up to 24 new docking spots? Can you clarify that?
So Ray, I apologize. You were breaking a little. My internet, it might be my internet on my end, but if I heard you correctly, you're just wondering if this is for alleviate parking pressures on the existing property or part of proposed expansion of docking facilities.
Correct. And how many?
Is that correct? So I mean, Mr. The how many dock slips is something that is yet to be determined, and that will depend on the outcome of applications submitted to Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry for a water lot lease expansion, as well as to the federal government. But the available parking slips is a prerequisite for their decision. So that'll be part of that application will be, and Kevin Keith's working on that right now, those applications determining how many dock slips can go in the water lot lease proposed without affecting, adjacent property owners or with the federal government, any navigable waters.
Well, you must have some idea how many docking spaces and where you're going to put them. Are they going to extend off the existing docks, or do you have space for new docks there? I'm just curious.
Bruce, did you want to take that one, or I know Kevin's not here to answer about that application, but.
If and when we do any expansion, it will be off of the end.
Excuse me, I didn't hear you, Bruce.
It will be off of the end. We will not be adding any docking along the shoreline at all for boats. It'll be strictly off the end of the other two docks that are there.
Okay, so I guess a question for the planner. If we do make the change to commercial for the intent of a parking lot for dock expansion, what happens in the future if the property owner, Bruce, happens to sell the property? Do we eliminate the docking spaces?
Well, I guess this comes down to having a few balls in the air and having to figure out a logical procedure for coming forward with various planning applications. So if there had been a minor variance up front, likely one of the conditions, justification for a variance on parking associated with the dock property would likely have been reliant on establishing or guaranteeing parking spots in proximity. What we're doing here is getting approval for those parking lots first. So I guess, there's probably a couple of ways this could have unfolded. Approving the development of a parking lot here does not guarantee the future success for the minor variance, which must be considered on its own merit, but it does allow the applicant to, the owner of the property to bring forward a minor variance with the justification being partially that he can provide this parking in proximity. And it's quite possible, again, you know, we have to consider and review each application, but it's quite possible that a minor variance could be dependent on, or conditional in part on a legal agreement of being registered that guarantees these parking spots being supplied for the use of those, the patrons of that docking slip in perpetuity, or you know, or until such time as there's a renegotiation of that agreement. So there could well be that requirement in the future, but right now, without an application for the expansion of those of the docks, we don't have an application to tie it to yet. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But how would we handle that?
Well, typically there would, typically, you know, it'd be not uncommon. Again, I'm not making a recommendation on a minor variance yet, and you know, I'm making certain you know, guesses as to what the applicant may intend. So Bruce or Ryan may be able to answer more definitively as to what their plans are, but assuming they come forward with an application for a minor variance related to the parking requirement for an expanded dock, having a legal agreement would likely be a condition of that minor variance being approved.
Yeah, I think we need something, because my concern is the fact that these properties are separate, and what happens in the future if it's sold. And then we've developed 24 parking spots that the existing marina can't handle because they don't have parking. But I'm just throwing that out there as a concern, and it may be nothing at this point, but it's just it's because the properties aren't together. You know, they're separate, and the parking goes hand in hand with the dock expansion. So otherwise, I would just rather see the lot stay as it is, as an R3. So anyway, that's all for now, Mr. Chair.
Okay. All right. John Barr, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I have a quick. Is there any plans for boat storage on this, in these parking areas?
Ryan or Bruce?
At this time, we're looking for parking for vehicles, because that is the reason for the marina. We need more parking.
For the planner, is there any restrictions on boat storage in a parking area like that?
I'm just pulling up the zoning bylaw to double check here.
That's what I was just.
I just want to just double check the highway commercial zoning.
It just says parking lot.
Yeah, certainly the applicant has only stated in their application that they intend to use it as a parking lot, but the fact is, once something is rezoned, any of the permitted uses would be permitted. The only use that would be close to that would be as a commercial storage facility, and I think for that, just double checking our definitions. No, it would have to be an enclosed area to be used for storage. So outdoor storage, I don't believe would be, sorry, I'm just double checking open storage. It certainly wouldn't be permitted in the front yard of that property, which would be the front 20 feet or so. I don't believe so. And Melissa, you can correct me if I'm wrong in terms of interpretation of the zoning bylaw, if we've ever interpreted to allow for boat storage in a highway commercial zone. I don't believe the bylaw is supportive of that.
Sorry, I was just trying to pull up the RR and RU zones to indicate where we do have it permitted. 1 second, please.
I think the bylaw is restrictive on boat storage on side yards, front yards, and backyards, but more slanted towards residential properties where the resident may own a boat or two.
That's
yeah,
correct.
we do have specific provisions for that personal vehicle boat storage, and you're correct, but not commercial storage like this.
So the most appropriate definition would be open storage. And as you've indicated, Mr. Barr, that's not included in the highway commercial zone.
Okay.
Thank you, Melissa.
Follow-up question. Owners of boats that use the slips at the current marina, where do they normally store their boats in winter? Or is do we have any information on that?
Bruce, you could answer that question.
A 30-foot boat or better has to go to Northern Harbor. They're the only one that can handle it.
You don't have boats. You don't have boats. The common 18, 20 footers in the slips at all, or?
Yes, we do, and I don't know where they keep their boats. I'm assuming they take them home or whatever.
Okay. Oh, that's fair. All right, thank you.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. John McDougall.
Just one thing, and it doesn't relate to a question, but I noticed it in the as we're reading through your report, Kevin, that talks about the public meeting being January 12th, 2020. We should probably just amend that to be January, I assume it's January 12th, 2021.
Yes, you're correct, and then I believe the notice is correct in stating the correct year. We won't be time traveling for that particular public hearing.
For sure. Nothing from me, Mr. Chair. Okay. I just one observation as we're going through it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just confirmed that the notice is correct. That is an error.
Believe me, we don't want to do anything else in 2020.
No, I agree. Okay, thank you.
Bev?
Yes, thank you. Regarding the two pieces of property, this question is for Kevin, please, if you don't mind. Can we not register a merger agreement on those two properties so they're sold together?
What two properties are you talking about?
Well, the Bruce's property where he is existing now, and then the property where he's going to be putting his boat, like the boats, where this application is. If you because I think that was Ray's question. He was concerned about them being sold separately. If one, if Bruce was to sell off the main part of it, and then the storage would be left behind. So I'm saying at one time what we did at Land Titles is we had a merger agreement with the municipality, would register. It's called a merger agreement under the Planning Act. It didn't merge under the Land Titles Act, but it merged under the Planning Act, so they had to sell them together. So I'm wondering, can we put something on both titles to accommodate that?
We could certainly look at that as an option when that deliberation comes. Generally, based on my past practice, the usual way in which these are managed is just by means of a legal agreement between the municipality and the property owner registered against the title and transferable to successors that sets aside that portion of the property for the parking of or the use for parking of patrons of the other property. But certainly we can look at various options as when we get to that.
Is that something that we can put as a condition tonight, or is that to under another application that will be in the future?
That would be as a future application because at this point, the property owner, Mr. Kruicki, has not yet applied for that minor variance that would be required for.
Okay, okay. And my other question to you, you may not want to hear it, but I want it acknowledged, is Nash Street and Nash Drive. There was to be a property swap with Chia, and I'm just wondering if you have any information on that. When my concern is that road is going to be used by, you know, everybody down there, plus, you know, possibility of a condo or something at the end, who knows, but there's going to be lots of traffic. So that property should be transferred into the name of the city. Is there any movement on that? Are you waiting for the decision from LPAT, or could you give us any information on that? I would like it in the minutes so that PAC knows about it and we're addressing it now.
Yeah, I'm certainly happy to reply to that. Yeah, the fact is it is wrapped up in the application by the owner of that property involved in that swap, and that unfortunately is still in a bit of a limbo at LPAT in terms of still being formally referred before them. You know, when that property owner whether through this or some future application, you know, we'd certainly take the opportunity when permitted to require that land swap. Certainly the preference is to have municipal infrastructure, including roads, or such as roads, be located on municipal property, which relieves all sorts of potential headaches in the long term.
Okay. And any issues with egress and egress will be addressed in future, and is that by a site plan process? Is that how the reason I'm bringing this up is there was so much you know, conversation about that when we had the condo, and I'm saying now we're going to have another 24, possibly another 24 vehicles, maybe more, Mr. Karwacki, depending on his application with M&R. Is that when it's dealt with, like we would have there are stop signs, stop lights, or whatever? It's at the planning site, the site plan process?
Yes, well, there will be site plan control approval. Certainly, we touched base with our roads and engineering departments in terms of this particular application, and they did not feel that the rezoning of the property necessitated any requirements on their part. They will review again at the site plan control. You know, and we do appreciate that the applicant has provided a sketch of what they intend to do in terms of a parking lot, but until they formally apply for site plan control, it's not uncommon for plans to get revised you know, prior to the formal application. So once we have that strong commitment in the site plan control, you know, we'll certainly consider it at that point. You know, I did touch base directly with roads in regards to whether there's any concerns with maintenance or access as a result of this application, and was told not.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Robert?
Yep, that's good. Thank you.
Robert?
Oh, thanks, Mr. Chair. My Alt-A wasn't working. Just through you, Mr. Chair, to the planner, can you tell me what is the zone for the actual current parking that Mr. Karwacki owns right now? Can you tell me what the zone is of that piece of property? I wasn't able to see it in the report. Is it highway commercial as well?
Let me just double check. I believe it is, but you know, I prefer to check things on paper. So just give me 1 second. I'm just pulling up my zoning map for the property here. Yes, it is highway commercial as well.
Okay, so these two properties will be the same. So I have no other question, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Oh, go ahead, John McDougall.
Just a quick one. I'm just looking at that ARC or ArcGIS and for the city, and it's showing the road like between the Anchor Inn or between the existing parking and the Marina Docks as Colonization Road. Is that something that's out of date, or because I'm looking at the report and I'm seeing on the first picture, I'm seeing Nash Drive and Nash Street.
Yeah, the name was changed.
Oh, okay.
The council changed that name. There was a deputation and they changed the name
Okay.
a couple years ago.
Okay. I just noticed, I don't know if anybody can see that where it says,
Yeah.
shows that colonization. And I was just curious about that. So
We can certainly touch base with our mapping GIS technician and see that that gets changed. I guess it must be pulling from older data than that reflects the previous name.
for sure. Okay. That's good. In case you have some new business coming up.
So one question of Ryan. You talked about Kevin Keith. What role is Kevin Keith playing?
And I'm glad you asked. This may help tie into a little bit Ray's question too. So the water lot lease application. So when Ray talked about 2 properties, actually I get 3 properties here. The water lot lease application is a lease of Crown land, and that's where the dock facilities will be. And I mean, Kevin, but one of the conditions, one of the reasons that's actually the final step here is the province will not approve any water lot lease applications for docking facilities unless there are parking spots associated with it. I haven't had the conversation about what happens if the reverse, but I would imagine that if for some reason Mr. Krivicki were to sell that property and no longer have the parking spots, that would cause the province to revisit the water lot lease application. Unfortunately, I can't confirm that, but there is this other piece here. So Kevin Keith is taking care of those applications. That's where his background and experience are with M&R. Bruce was able to bring him out of retirement to work on this work, the water lot lease application to the province, as well as some of the Navigable Waters Protection Act. So Kevin's doing the work on that piece of the application process.
Okay. Any other questions? Anybody got any other questions?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I just maybe wouldn't mind double checking maybe through you to the planner. The applicant wouldn't be able to sell this property anyways, because would he not have to have 1 parking space per slip? So then therefore, if he sold that property in the future, he'd be in violation of the zoning bylaw. So what mechanism is there to ensure that there isn't a sale of the property other than a merger like Bev had mentioned? But you had also discussed that there would be some type of legal requirement on the application. Is that how we would mitigate that risk, Kevin?
Yes, well, the agreement I mentioned, which is typical. I can't say 100% for sure that that's what will be required, but based on the information we have available at this time, if we required such an agreement guaranteeing the dedication of those lots to the use of the dock patrons, and that then be conveyable to future owners of the property, then under the hypothetical situation where Mr. Krivicki sold the docks, whoever purchased the docks would inherit that agreement for his patrons or her patrons. And the only way to remove such an agreement would be with the consent of the city. So I guess someone could purchase that property and find parking elsewhere, in which case we could get a new agreement for other parking spaces and then release these ones. But just simply transferring ownership of one property or the other would not nullify such an agreement.
Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? Discussion? Anybody want to open discussion? Bev?
I think all my questions have been answered. Thank you.
Ray? You there, Ray? No.
Sorry about that. I lost the screen there for a sec. Yeah, it's gone around in circles here a little bit with respect to the 2 properties, and Ryan and Bev and Robert both are all touched on it again, and that was my concern. And I guess I could support this if there was some assurances of I think Bev called it a merger agreement with the properties, because it appears to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, but it appears to me the only reason we're doing this
this recommendation to change it from R3 to highway commercial is the fact is it's a business requirement, an application requirement to the ministry to have parking to support additional docking for the marina, which is a couple property away from this other one. So again, I'll reiterate my concern is what happens if in fact the property is sold in the future, and then we got all these extra docks sticking out there up to 24. Right? That hasn't even been made clear yet with the proposal. I can only make an assumption, and we don't even know how many docks are proposed for any of the other marinas down there. But that would be my hope, is we could come up with some condition or some assurances that there will be a merger agreement, or can be. If you could add to that, Kevin, or just through the minutes of this, because we're only making a recommendation to the city. I guess the city would get our concerns just through these minutes.
Well, you touched on an important fact when you're mentioning the other marinas. You mentioned that we don't know how many docks, and the fact is we don't yet know how many slips we'll calculate for whatever dock expansion Mr. Quickie comes forward with, and until we know what the required number of parking spaces is for the expanded docks, we won't know what the variance that will be required. So once we know what's being required for docks, then we'll come up with a variance application, which I suspect Mr. Quickie will use the justification of these additional parking spaces being available for. And at that point, we can have a legal agreement guaranteeing a set number, whatever number of parking spaces are required, be dedicated from this property for the use of that expanded dock. So I'm extremely confident that when we're dealing with the minor variance application, that we'll be able to sort out all the details of how many parking spaces are exactly required here, and come up with a legal agreement regarding the perpetual availability of those parking spaces, and we will be able to resolve it during that minor variance application.
Ray, we're still with you.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say. It's just, it almost seems premature, but because there's that third party, the province, with their approval requirements as well, and we don't have any of that information to help us tonight in making a decision. So I'm a little concerned with that. That's all.
Okay, John Barr.
Nothing further from me.
Where, John, did you get an opportunity yet? John McDougall?
Mr. Chair, I wonder if Ryan can help us out. Like I'm not too familiar with the leases and how they operate, but if there was a transfer in that business, is there a requirement to like identify that all the same things to carry on with that lease still exist, or are you familiar? Can you give us any guidance or information, Ryan, that might help Ray and the rest of the members understand it better? That would be my question, Mr. Chair, is if we could get a little more information.
So just before we go to Ryan, I mean, one of the things that I'm sort of hearing, what I'm watching here, is that what I'm hearing is that what the concerns are, but I also think we're hearing back that there is a system in place that these concerns would be dealt with when the application comes forward for putting, like, for the docking. So the parking becomes part of the scenario to approve the docking. Kevin, is that right or not?
Yes, I think that's an accurate summation. It's in a perfect world. I appreciate the perspective of the committee, and that if we had all the applications coming forward at the same time, it might make things a little bit clearer and give you that reassurance. It's just the applicants have started with this. If they'd started with the minor variance, we likely wouldn't have been able to, the minor variance at best would have been conditional on this rezoning of the property. The applicants have chosen to get the zoning in place first, which has raised the whole question of the future dock expansion. But the fact is they haven't made any applications for that actual dock expansion at this point. Really, there's just the big picture really at this point of whether this property would be appropriately zoned if it was changed to a highway commercial zone.
So once again, because Bruce has said what he wants to use it for, you know, he's played that card. He's told us that he's going to use it for parking. He wants to expand his docking, but in between this is the city that, I mean, he has to meet the requirement. So the docking and the parking has to work. So once again, I don't know if we're pushing it way too far forward. Like, it's going to be dealt with. It's just that tonight, what we're dealing with, we know what he wants to use it for, but I'm not sure we can push this that far forward. It's not going to be dealt with without the city being involved.
Yeah, yes, I think we certainly appreciate Mr. Quickley's forthrightness in disclosing his intended use of the property and even providing a site plan. But those certainly weren't requirements of the application. And unfortunately, his forthrightness in this case has raised questions that that probably are technically out of the scope of the big picture rezoning of the property.
And we're not hearing the planner telling us that it could be an issue, because once again, he's not applying to park 24 cars, but putting in 105 docks. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, at this point he's creating additional parking spaces, which even independent of a variance on the dock expansion is simply providing amenity for his use for whatever parking he may require there.
Okay. So John, okay, sorry, just a sec, John. So your question was to Ryan.
So maybe you're right, Mr. Chair. Maybe it is premature to ask that question, but maybe it's something that if this is one step in steps to becoming in the future, that maybe we could get an insight of how that would get laid out, like those leases and everything, so we could make a better informed decision sometime later. Maybe, I agree with the planner that it's probably, for this purpose, it's probably not, it's not important, but it's, for future, like moving forward, if that's the plan, which has been sort of exposed to us, that we would need to know that information.
All right.
So I'll just leave it at that. So
just a sec. Let's hold on a sec. Beva, you were first. What was your concern?
Oh, yeah, maybe I'm going too forward here. I just wondered if where the garage is now, and Mr. Karwacki is keeping it presently, but in 5 years, if he has an opportunity to have another 20 boats or something, does he have to make application to park there, or can he just take the garage down and go ahead and park more vehicles there? Because there could be opportunities. I mean, this is God's country. I mean, everybody's got a boat. So I'm just wondering, is that a possibility? Not that he's going to, I'm just asking. If we're looking for more parking.
Yes, so any redevelopment of the property for commercial use is subject to site plan control. So if hypothetically Mr. Quickie were to demolish the residence and expand the parking lot, there would be a requirement for site plan control as part of that. As far as the outdoor storage, as we've already stated, the boat storage would not be permitted in that zone. So if that was the desire of Mr. Quickie, probably at a minimum there would need to be a site-specific zoning amendment to permit that type of storage in that property, or a rezoning, which I have a hard time imagining in that particular location to a more industrial type of zoning. But it would be a public process regardless of how Mr. Quickie sought approvals.
I see. Okay, thank you.
I think we haven't been to Robert yet, but John will go to you first. John Barr.
Yeah, quick, if the proponent was to get a permit for expansion to the water lots and it met the requirements of fisheries and oceans as far as fish habitat, et cetera, goes, would the actual permitting by the province and federal government be subject to concurrence of the city? I'm having a hard time understanding the requirement that Kevin talks about for him to seek approval from the city for an expansion to the marina. Under what
So, okay, no, and that's perfect, John, because I think that's at the crux of a lot of this discussion is so basically for say for the water lot lease expansion, the province will not approve any water lot lease expansion unless the city has approved it, mainly in the form of having enough parking spaces to support the dock slips. In order to get a parking lot to and go through the application process to get a parking lot on the property, Mr. Kariuki has to go through a rezoning before that application will either be entertained. And so here we are at step one of 3 steps. And that's why it's hard to know even how many dock slips at the end of this will be available, because the availability of dock slips is just one of the criteria that the province will use to make their determination on whether or not they permit a water lot lease, and if so, that the size of it and how many dock slips will be the capacity there. So I think Mr. Kariuki has an interest in trying to expedite this process. I think there's hope that if he's able to expand the marine operations, it could take place as soon as the spring. But the concurrency of all these applications has some risks in terms of costs, and I guess as we've seen today, some confusion in terms of what's actually being applied for at each step. But hopefully that helps to clarify. And really at the end of this, once the rezoning, if it were to be approved, and if through site plan, if a parking lot could be approved, there still is no guarantee that the province would approve a water lot lease, but it is a condition before they'll even consider it.
Okay.
So I don't know if that helped answer, John.
It does.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, I want to go to Robert, and we're in discussion.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. The only thing, if I can, I just would like to clarify with the planner so much for discussion, but it would be almost my interpretation that boat storage could be there only because under the highway commercial, you have permitted use of commercial storage facilities. So does the word facility make it a building or?
Yes,
Yeah.
and sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, yes, if you look at the definition of commercial storage facility in the zoning bylaw, it does refer to internal storage.
Okay.
And yeah. I can read you that in a second if I pull it when I get to the right page here.
No, I already got it, 2-5,
Okay.
but thanks. Yeah, I seen that. I should have went there first. No, Mr. Chair, not much to add for discussion. I mean, the general intent of the application is to go from a residential third density, so R3 to commercial. He just wants to do some of the permitted uses under the highway commercial that he can't have under the residential. I think the biggest question is going to be more to council is that although marinas and that go under the general intent of the official plan, it does go a little bit against their housing first. So if they really wanted to maximize uses of land, it would be in their best interest to keep that as a R3, but it's not currently being looked at as a high density residential unit. So, I mean, that's more of a gut check or a discussion for council to make with themselves. So that's about all I have to add for discussion, Mr. Chair.
So again, I think in summing this up, sort of to the best of my ability, a lot of what I've heard and a lot of the answers and a lot of the parts of discussion that I've heard, everybody's concerned about where it goes from here. And once again, as Ryan said, there's a sort of a second part and a third part of this. But in the same tone, you know, our recommendation is just based on whether or not we think, you know, with the zoning, because once it gets past this, then this all comes back to Kevin to deal with things that even that we've discussed with tonight. Like the greater part of what we discussed is on Kevin's plate. Kevin, is that correct?
Yeah, that's accurate. And I guess more specifically that it will be addressed through future applications. In no way does approval of the rezoning give any sort of nod to expansion of the docking. That's going to be the topic of a separate application with different considerations.
And I understand everybody's concern, but I do believe that those concerns will be addressed in the second part or third part of what's going on there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bev.
Yes, thank you. I'm just thinking that even if Mr. Karwicki, if it took him like 2 years or something to get all the applications, he could still have people parking there. Like if we approve this zoning, he could still have people parking there. So I mean, he's getting income. He's providing a service.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't be wasted. Is that right? Like anybody, he could still have somebody parked there until he got his docking if he ended up getting it in the end. Yeah. So it's not a wasted application. Is that right?
But once again, you know, so that's a fair statement, but I think they're aggressively trying to move this ahead so they can get going in the next boat season.
Okay.
So what we're doing tonight is basically step one.
Okay.
But yeah, sure. If there was a parking lot there and there was cars to park in it, I see why that would be no issue.
Mm-hmm.
Like that wouldn't be something
wasted.
that we, you know. So once again, I'm hearing everybody, but I'm still thinking that we're putting way too much. We're pushing it way too far forward. So again, I think recommendation wise. So is there any other discussion? Is there anything else? Is there everybody good? Robert? Good. Ray? You're good? Okay. So Melissa, can you read the recommendation?
Sure. Resolved that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Kenora approve application for zoning bylaw amendment file number D14-2004, civic address 63 Nash Street, Kenora, Ontario, to change the zoning of the subject property from R3 residential third density zone to HC highway commercial zone. The committee has made an evaluation of the application upon its merits against the official plan, zoning bylaw, and the provincial policy statement 2020, and provides a recommendation to council purely based on these matters, whereas the committee may have not had the opportunity to hear public comments in full.
And once again, I think that council, looking at the minutes of our meeting, will see the concerns. They'll be able to see our concerns. Okay, do I have somebody to put a motion forward? John McDougall.
Sure, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion that file number D14-20-04 to change the zoning of the subject property from R3 residential third density zone to highway commercial zone be approved as outlined by the Secretary Treasurer.
All right. The seconder? Robert? Any other discussion? All in favor? Melissa, you seeing that? Ray, your hand was up, right?
Ray, was your hand up or? Sorry, you're muted, Ray.
Unmute yourself, Ray.
No, my hand wasn't up.
Your hand wasn't up? Okay. So Melissa, you're good there?
John Barr, was your hand up? Sorry, I missed that.
Okay, yes. Hands up again. Bev?
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
We're good now. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Melissa, do you want to wrap that one up?
Yeah, we're good. That's a recommendation to council. So again, that will go to the statutory public meeting by way of the resolution and the minutes. And to Mr. Haynes and Mr. Kowicki, we will see you on January 12th,
2021.
2021. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Does anybody need a break? We're gonna keep rolling?
Sure.
Okay,
Okay, so Mr. John Barr, you may exit the meeting and I'll have it in the minutes that you exit at 7:27.
Yeah, thanks so much. Take
have a
care.
good Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
Yes, Merry
Thank you,
Christmas,
John.
John.
Same to you.
Merry Christmas,
Bye-bye.
John.
Take care, John. Happy holidays.
Okay, so we'll move to consideration of an application for consent D10-2007, Robert and Nancy Reynolds, and the agent is Tara tonight.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
So I'm sure you've all had an opportunity to read both my planning rationale and Mr. Sumner's planning application. I do want to point out that both of these properties have sold since I was hired. So Carvello sold to Redline Enterprises, and Nancy and Robert Reynolds sold to Carson and Devin Reynolds. So I just want to get that straight so everybody can sort of follow that little bouncing ball. Really what we're trying to do is take property that has not been used and is essentially useless to Reynolds, which, oh, should I carry on? There we go. To Reynolds, and for those of you who've seen it or had a chance to have a look at the photos, it's, you know, with probably about 120 feet away from their house, and a grade change of about 3 meters. And it has been, there has been a layer of gravel put over it, and the agreement was made in July between Nancy and Robert Reynolds and Herman Carvello to do this application. So one of the comments that that we received and also has been discussed probably in September with the surveyor and with David Elliott's office was about easements, existing easements, and the PIN description, which doesn't include some of them. The issue here is that it's expensive and takes time to remove these easements. So we are hoping that we can just leave them in place. They aren't being used, haven't been used, and both owners have no issue with that. And the neighboring property to the west, Rabbit Lake Store, also has no issue with that. So those are the I just want to make sure I've got sort of the, oh yeah, the other thing that we're asking is that because there is, you know, it's a sliver of property, it is zoned as a residential piece. And we're asking that there be a change in the mapping to reflect a change to the highway commercial zone without further applications. So those are really the sort of the highlights of the application and things that probably will lead to questions.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. So with regards to my report, and actually before I get into my report, I'll just address the last thing that Tara touched on, which was the zoning of this sliver of property. If this were a substantial portion of land being transferred, zoning would likely have been a consideration. We did give consideration to that, and we feel that this is something that we can clear up through our forthcoming zoning bylaw review, given this very small parcel of property involved here. With that being said, just moving on to the report, figure 1 illustrates the full extent of those properties, and figure 2 illustrates the small triangular portion of land that's to be severed from the from the Reynolds property and transferred to the property to the north. That parcel is 0.001 hectares in size from 145 Rabbit Lake Road, and it is being proposed for addition to the property at 149 Rabbit Lake Road. The property being severed extends south to the Crown Reserve on the shoreline of Rabbit Lake. A single detached dwelling is located on the northern portion of that site, and the south portion is tree covered and undeveloped. The portion being severed is naturally separated from the remainder of the property to the south by a large rock face and significant elevation change. The lot being added to is currently occupied by a contractor service use. Both of the subject properties are serviced with municipal sewer and water, electrical services and gas, and have frontage on Rabbit Lake Road. Neighboring uses include 2 local businesses adjacent to the subject properties on the south side of Rabbit Lake Road and single detached dwellings on surrounding properties. An existing easement is located on the parcel being severed in favor of the lands to the north of the retained lands and to the west of the lands in which the property will be added. The applicant has stated that they intend to leave the easement in place. In regards to consistency with policies, the provincial policy statement, we believe it to be generally consistent with the provincial policy statement, which promotes managing and directing land use to achieve efficient and resilient development and land use patterns. The proposed severance and transfer of the small portion of the property appears to be a reasonable solution to the needs of the applicants, making effective use of land and resources. In regards to the official plan, the land use designation of the properties is established areas, which provides for a variety of agricultural, residential, industrial, commercial, recreation, tourism, and open space uses. Surrounding properties are also designated as established area, with an area designated as rural area being located a short distance to the north. And you can see that illustrated in figure 3. The official plan is silent on the subject of using consent to sever small portions of property for realignment for property boundaries, which doesn't result in the creation of a new lot. In regards to zoning bylaw, number 10-2015, the property being severed is zoned R1, residential first density zone. Development in the R1 zone is subject to the regulations of section 4.1 of the bylaw. Lots in the zone must have a minimum frontage of 15 meters and lot area of 450 square meters when serviced by municipal sewer and water. The property does not currently meet the minimum lot frontage requirement, but this legal nonconformity is unaffected by this application for consent. The property that is being added to is zoned LC, local commercial zone. Development in the LC zone is subject to the regulations of section 4.6. Lots in this zone must have a minimum frontage of 18 meters and a minimum lot area of 500 square meters when serviced by sewer and water, and it does appear to meet the minimum requirements. The lots will continue to comply with the regulations of the zoning bylaw following the severance and lot addition. The proposed consent was circulated for comment on November 16th, 2020. And there was no concerns expressed by any of the commenting agencies that were circulated to. The circulation of the notice for completed application and hearing for consent to sever was completed in accordance with section 53 of the Planning Act, where it was circulated to property owners within 60 meters and posted on the subject property on November 30th. Notice was also provided to the persons in public bodies as prescribed. Public hearing is scheduled for tonight, and as of the date of the report, no public comments have been received, and none have been received since. In terms of evaluation, the proposed severance and lot addition will result in the realignment of lot boundaries to allow the contractor service use on the northern lot to make use of a small portion of the southern property that is not required by the current owner. The application is supported by the policies of the provincial policy statement and official plan, and is compatible with the zoning bylaw. I've stated in the report the legislative framework for consent approval, which the committee is familiar with. Therefore, it is my recommendation that the application D10-20-07 for consent for lot severance on property located at 145 Rabbit Lake Road and legally described as PIN 42172-0054, City of Kenora, and the addition of the severed parcel to the property located at 149 Rabbit Lake Road and described as PIN 42172-0056, City of Kenora, be approved and provisional consent be granted subject to the following. 1, the original executed transfer deed of land form, a duplicate original, and 1 photocopy for city records be provided for each parcel. 2, a schedule to the transfer deed of land form on which is set out the entire legal description of the pins in question and containing the names of the parties indicated on page 1 of the transfer deed of land form be provided for each parcel. 3, that the lands to be transferred for lot addition be surveyed and described on a reference plan, and that a draft is provided to the planning department for pre-approval. 4, 3 original copies and 1 PDF copy of the reference plan of survey bearing the land registry office registration number and signatures as evidence of deposit therein and illustrating the parts to which the consent approval relates, which must show in general the same area and dimensions as a sketch forming part of the application be provided. 5, that the payment of outstanding taxes, including penalties and interests and any local improvement charges if applicable, shall be paid to the city of Kenora. 6, that prior to endorsement of the deeds, the Secretary Treasurer receive a letter from the owner, owner's agent solicitor, confirming that conditions number 1 through number 5 have been fulfilled. Clearance from the city of Kenora and external agencies as required are to be included. And 7, that all costs associated with the surveys, legal fees, and matters related to the application are the responsibility of the developer applicant. And I note that sections 5341 and 5343 will apply to this approval as well. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Tara, back to you.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, everything good? There's no one from the public, so we'll move right to the committee for questions. Robert, we'll start with you.
I have no questions, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Bev?
I was wondering, Tara, would there be a consolidation of the two properties or will you leave them separate?
No, they'll be consolidated, I think based on discussion with Mr. Elliott's office.
Okay, perfect. Concerning the zoning, I noticed in your application it was highway commercial throughout, right. And so is that mean it's just going to be, it doesn't matter right at this point, right? It's just going to be, and the city's going to do the work. You don't have to make an application.
Yeah, that was right. My based on the size. Yes.
Okay. Okay. That's good. Those were all my questions. Thank you very much.
Okay. John?
So just so I understand, Mr. Chair, so it just falls into a highway commercial from a local commercial zone as soon as the size of the property changes? Am I missing something?
Yeah, I made an error.
I can address that. Yeah, there's an error there. Any reference to highway commercial should be taken as a reference to local commercial.
Okay. All right. Nothing further for me then. Thank you.
Okay. Ray?
Yeah, sure. This is to Tara. With respect to those easements that run along the properties there, behind the properties on the local commercial properties, they're going to stay, I assume. But do you have any idea what the intent of those easements were for?
In speaking with the Francis's, right. It seems as though they might have been put there for an access of some kind, but they've never used them. They aren't really quite sure, and Reynolds aren't quite sure. It may have something to do with the previous owner of Reynolds property was Tresser, as was the log cabin, also Tresser, many years ago. So there may have been something there, but nobody really knows.
So the intent of this application is to leave the easements as they are, and then the property addition is just going to go on top of that easement.
Right. So the reason, a big part of the reason here is that when Mr. Carvello sold, he's paying for this application, he's paying for everything else, and it's expensive and it does take time. So he would like to just sort of get the matter put to bed as quickly as possible, to be honest. And neither the current property owner, neither of the current property owners has any objection at all to this.
Okay, but will it cause them some concern in the future, possibly having that easement there? No?
I don't think so. I can't really answer that, in all honesty. I don't think so. It hasn't caused a problem for the last few owners. That's all I can say.
Okay, and who's the easement in favor of? Like,
So there are actually, so the easement, the second. Did everybody get the color-coded easement description that
I guess my concern is that it's not being used and it hasn't been used, but what if that person or whoever has the easement comes along somewhere in the future and says, hey, I want to use this? So,
Well, and the property owner is aware that this could happen.
okay,
Yeah.
all right, fair enough.
So yeah, and just to elaborate on that, so the person who bought the subject property is aware that that easement is there. So they're not concerned that it's there?
No.
They're okay with it? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions? Discussion. Ray, can we start with you?
no, I have nothing further to add.
Dev, anything?
Yeah, just that the easement, I personally would like to see it taken off, but they sound very adamant that they're going to leave it on. But, you know, if the Francis family sell that and somebody, the new owner, they can go and stand on that property and the guy can't do anything about it. So that's why I would prefer for it to be dealt with now. But as I say, you've discussed it with your solicitor and the clients and everybody's happy. So there's really nothing that we can do. But
As well.
thank you.
Sorry, I cut you off there. Go ahead.
I just
Sorry,
was,
cut you off.
yeah, I just was saying that recommendation was made to them as well.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But they're okay with it?
Yep.
Okay, John?
No discussion, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Okay, Robert?
No discussion, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, if there's nothing more. Oh, hello, Adam.
How's good, Vanette? I prefer using my two screens, but I figured I can actually go on video without the last piece here.
Okay. So no further discussion, no further questions, so we need a motion. Somebody? Robert?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that the Planning Advisory Committee approve application D10-2007 as written in the planning report, Mr. Chair.
Seconder? Ray?
Sure.
We'll go with Ray. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay. Go ahead, Melissa.
Thank you. I'm just pulling up my notice here. So Tara, that does take us to an appeal period of January 6th. I will have that notice out to you by Thursday. If you have any questions, certainly feel free to get a hold of me, but otherwise, happy holidays and thanks for being with us here tonight.
Well, thank you, and Merry Christmas to everybody. I hope you have really some time off and some good time off, and thankfully we all have video chats that we can see our families and friends with.
Great. Thank you. Merry Christmas to you too. All best wishes.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank
Sarah.
you.
Bye.
All right. So we will move ahead to OP and zoning bylaw review. Who's going to start that off?
Yes, I can bring you up to speed. So as you know, there was a survey, a report provided by the consultants at WSP up on our official plan and zoning bylaw review webpage last month, in approximately a 2-week period in which we had they had an electronic survey live for submission of survey responses in regards to the presentation. We understand that the consultants are now proceeding with analysis of those survey results and working on starting their work on preparation of our review of the draft plan of any change or drafting up proposed changes to the official plan. There has been some back and forth as they solicit more information from us to inform their analysis. And we continue to work with them in regards to specifically to vacant land supply, we were doing some mapping and providing some statistics for them in terms of vacant land analysis that was required, that they expect to be required by the province as part of their documentation. We have scheduled the next meeting of our technical advisory committee for early in January. I believe that was January 13th, that week anyways, at which time we expect to have some more information from the consultants in regards to their documentation for the next phase that eventually will be provide information for another round of public engagement and a report to council on some of the key priority areas that are being identified for decisions in terms of new or amended policies that may be included in the updated official plan.
Anybody else want to add anything? That Melissa?
Nope, nothing here.
Adam?
No, I think I was just going to, if we're kind of ending the meeting, just let folks know to, have a Merry Christmas and thanks for everyone's work over the past year. I know it's been a kind of a challenging one, but I also appreciate everyone being able to adapt to this new virtual setting, and I think it's been going pretty well. So, and I'm happy that you guys have been so agreeable to it, and it's kind of definitely helped move things forward and move a lot of important projects ahead, and especially looking to 21, I'm hoping that we can get some in-person meetings again. I do enjoy being a spectator in person. So
yeah. Well, I've been going every morning and standing at the front door of the Northwestern Health Unit waiting to get vaccinated, but nobody wants to let me in, so it might take a bit. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm hearing maybe September is the timeline for everyone to be fully vaccinated. So we might be, might have to get pretty cozy in this whole Zoom type of format for a little bit longer.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it seems to be working good. I think it's working pretty good. I don't think anybody the glitches that we have, we seem to be able to get them rectified fairly quickly.
No, exactly. It's just, I think the big casualty of this whole pandemic is probably going out for that Christmas dinner. It's, or having that kind of group networking is certainly better in more in-person type of format.
Yeah. Oh, well, we'll keep working with that for sure.
We'll get them back in 2021, right, Adam? I just want to echo what Adam had said. Thank you guys so much for your patience with myself personally this year and your flexibility, and Merry Christmas to each and every one of you.
Thank you. And she too. Yeah.
I was just going to chime in and add my own season's greetings. Some of us have yet to meet in person, so I certainly don't have that personal face-to-face relationship with you that Melissa and Adam do, but it's been a pleasure working with you via the interweb and look forward to a day when we might actually meet face-to-face. Have a happy holidays.
Thank you. You too.
I'm feeling the same. Everybody have a good holiday. Stay safe. And we'll fire it all up again in January. It's got to stay out of the way.
Sounds good.
Right. Well, I guess we need somebody to close the meeting.
We do. Thank you.
I'll adjourn the meeting.
You'll adjourn it? Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Bev.
Okay. Merry Christmas, everyone. Take care.
Yeah.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.
So do you want to see me tomorrow or the day after?
How about Thursday?
Thursday's good.
All right. Thanks.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Merrily.
Take care, guys.
Bye
Night.
now.
Good night.